Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, today, do you ever get one of those things, you're in a mood of which kind of console to play? And just recently, I've been in that mood for playing my, you guessed it, the Sega Saturn. This bad boy. Now, what a great machine it was, or was it a good machine back then? Was it a good machine back now, or now, say? I mean, this came out to rival the PlayStation. They heard that the PlayStation was coming out, or PlayStation was coming out, and they released it probably a month or two before. Now, was it a good machine? I think one of the downsides to it was it went for $399, whereas the PlayStation went for $299. I think that's one of the downsides to it. And there's rumours. I've listened, I've watched, and had a look all over the internet to find out. One of the things with this, we don't know how true it is, but they. Right at the last minute, I heard that the PlayStation was going to do 3D. It was really good at 3D graphics, and this they decided to put a chip in the Sega Saturn right at the last minute to do 3D graphics, so it could do 3D graphics well. How true it is, I don't know. I don't think we never know the true reason, but that is one of the stories out there. Now, the Sega Saturn was an absolute awesome machine. It wasn't that popular over here in the UK. No, it was in America, absolutely popular. But everywhere it was all about the PlayStation, gotta get a PlayStation. And I didn't get a Sega Saturn at the beginning. I wasn't fussed, I wasn't bothered. I got one later on. And I didn't rate this machine back then. I didn't know about it for a start. Now, I've been playing it recently. I thought, let's have a look back. Let's kind of do a re-review maybe, or just a look back at is the Sega Saturn a great console, or is it worth playing today? That's kind of a rhetorical question. So I think it is. It is now and then. It was, still is a beautiful machine, absolutely beautiful machine. Like I say, I think the downside was they decided to release it for $399, sorry, and then the PlayStation was $299, so it didn't do as well over here in the UK. Fair enough. Now I've been looking back and playing this bad boy, and I think it is such a good machine. There's loads of games to choose from, and there's still quite a few cheap ones out there. I love the joypad as well. The joypad, the 6-button joypad with the 2 shoulder buttons, and you got your start button. It really fit and worked well. I think this they did this because the 32X, they were like, no, with the 32X, no, we're not going to concentrate on that. Yeah, you can do 3D graphics, it's an add-on to the Mega Drive. We're going to concentrate on a CD-based system to rival the PlayStation. Let's concentrate and put all our firepower into the Sega Saturn. Now, this is definitely a good machine in my opinion. I think some of you out there will probably say, well, no, more about PlayStation. I'm going to say I love this machine. Now, back then I didn't. So I just wanted to go over a couple of the games as well to see, just to sort of revisit them and have a look if they're any good at all. But I definitely would recommend some of these. Now, I've chosen these games because they are pretty cheap. They're good they've got quite a bit of longevity in there as well. So, if you're playing a game, it costs £10 to buy and it gives you 10 hours of gameplay, that's £1 an hour. I think that's great. So my first one, I think it's an obvious one. We're going to go with Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter, wow. This came on the arcade and they released it onto the Sega Saturn. Now, they released it pretty quick, really, and it wasn't arcade perfect. They did a few shortcuts because they did re-release it later on. Now, it's your typical 3D fighter. Was it true 3D? You couldn't zoom around, but yeah, it's kind of 3D fighter kind of thing to rival Tekken at the time. Now, I remember playing this in the arcade, and then I actually remember seeing it on the Sega Saturn, and back then I did think, wow, this is arcade perfect. Looking back, it's not, but does that make it a bad game? Hell no. I really was impressed with this, and I still am to this day. I think it is a great version. Definitely worth getting. All the characters are there, all the backdrops are there. There is some like sprite flicker or layer flicker. When you're zooming around the grid or the platform, should we say, on one of the couple of the not pixels, the polygons disappear and then reappear again. But you get that in all sorts of games. But yeah, Virtua Fighter I did find was definitely one that worth playing. Definitely worth getting a Sega Saturn for at least. And it is still pretty cheap. So yeah, Virtua Fighter definitely worth getting. The next one I'm going to choose is Minx Superbike Tt. Now, why this one? I chose this one. I thought this was a pretty good one to start yourself off with the Sega Saturn because it's still pretty cheap, £5–10, and it does remind me of an updated version of Hang On. Now, I had never played this. I had never played this in the arcade. I've never played this before, and I'm going to be honest with you. I first played it on an emulator, and I liked it that much. I went out and bought it the next day because I did really enjoy it, and I did find that this one is, yeah, it's a bit hard. It's kind of like Ridge Racer but in bike form. There's like 3 laps. And it is a really good challenging game as well. Like I say, it reminded me of Hang On, but Super Hang On, or later on I know they did a version, but this did remind me of like a 3D Hang On. I know they've done versions like that, but I do like Minx Superbike Tt. Like I say, it's pretty cheap. Still worth getting. You get a good feel of you on a motorbike, and it handles quite well. You don't go skidding off around the corner when playing this. And definitely one if you're starting off with your Sega Saturn for collection. So my next one I'm going to choose is, well, it's going to be Tomb Raider. Now Tomb Raider originally came for the PlayStation, and then they did it on the Sega Saturn. Now, I've seen stories of it was originally made for the Sega Saturn. They could program the PlayStation quicker, so they did it first. It was released and then came out on the Saturn. You don't know what to believe, but regardless of that, it is still a good quality game. Everything is still there. It is slightly, because it's 3D graphics, it's not as sharp as the PlayStation, but that's irrelevant. You know, I like playing this. I've got this for the PlayStation, I've got it for the Sega Saturn as well, and I do still like playing this one. I find it probably easier to play on the joypads, the Sega Saturn joypads personally. Yeah, you do find there is, like I say, a few, like the resolution or it is slightly a bit blockier than the PlayStation version, but that doesn't bother me at all. I still like playing this version and I highly recommend it. There are other versions, but they came out on the Dreamcast, but there was only the one version, the Tomb Raider, that came out for the Sega Saturn. I do think it's definitely worth getting. It's still pretty cheap, and if you've not got any other machine yet, or which I think everyone has now, still worth buying Tomb Raider. Next one I'm going to get now is Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams. Now, I chose this one because this is still pretty cheap as well. I think it's about £20 you can get it for. Now, the thing about the Sega Saturn rivaling the PlayStation could handle 3D graphics better than the Sega Saturn, and the Sega Saturn could handle 2D graphics better than the PlayStation. Now, I found that this, they used, actually in the PlayStation, they used polygons as sprites. And that's why the loading times are longer on the PlayStation than on the Sega Saturn. I don't know how true that is. But I find that this is slightly fuller screen. Street Fighter Alpha was the first game I got for the PlayStation. I'd never played this one, and then when I played the Sega Saturn version, straight away I converted. I was like all about the Sega Saturn now for Street Fighter Alpha. I do think it's really good, pretty much near arcade perfect. If you put them side by side, I have to struggle to find a difference. Animation, music, everything is there. Absolutely brilliant. All the characters, all the hidden characters, and once again, I do find this better playing it on the joypad compared to the PlayStation joypad. I do think it is highly recommended getting it if you're starting out, getting a Sega Saturn, or if you've already got it. You know, I've got the PlayStation version too, but I do like the Sega Saturn version just a little bit more. Gives it that little bit more edge, and it got a worse review than the PlayStation, and yet, in my opinion, and I know quite a few other people out there thinking the Sega Saturn version is better. How it got a worse review than the PlayStation, I don't know. But anyway, Sega Saturn, Street Fighter Alpha, Warrior's Dreams, definitely one if you're thinking of starting that off. I think my next one I'm going to go with is Sega Rally. Yay, Sega Rally. Well, you know, you can't have a Sega machine without Sega Rally. This is probably in a lot of people's top 10 to have for the Sega Saturn. If you know, top 10 Sega Saturn games, and Sega Rally is probably like number 5 or something like that. It still holds up today. Absolutely fantastic, and highly recommend it. If you compare it against the arcade, there is a little bit of difference. You can see that, but it doesn't stop you wanting to play it. Good performance as well. It did bring the arcade home to the system, and you know, when you first played this, you're watching it on your screen, your TV, and you're like, wow, this is like arcade perfect. Okay, it's not, but it did have a very good arcade feel to it, and still does to this day. You're playing Sega Rally Championship, there's a lot to keep you going, quite challenging as well. All the levels, a lot of levels are there, loads of cars to choose from, like about 4 or 5, I think. And it does give that really good arcade feel, and once again, I find it easier to play this on the joypad, the Sega Saturn joypad, than any other machine. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it's one I've been going around, you know, when you fancy a quick blast, plug it in, play some Sega Rally, great game. And the final game I've got to choose, well, you can't have a Sega Saturn and not talk about Daytona USA. Now, this one, it was a bit of a step down to the arcade, and once again, it's another one that they rushed. Now, the draw distance is nowhere near as far, and they did release Daytona Championship, I think it was, and later on, just to, you know, top up what they kind of rushed on this one to get it out. Does it bother me? Does it ruin the gameplay? No, it doesn't ruin the gameplay at all. I did enjoy playing Daytona, and I still do to this day. You know, you've got all your tracks there, all your cars to choose from, and it is very, very fun indeed, and still pretty cheap. I think it's going for about £10–15, and it's, you know, if you're starting a Sega Saturn collection or you don't have it in your collection just yet, which I think, you know, if you're a Sega Saturn fan, like 99.999% of people will have this in their collection, but if you don't have it in your collection, it's definitely recommended. So like I say, pretty cheap, and yeah, if you can just look past the draw distance. For me, I'm not bothered about the draw distance, it's all about the gameplay. With each game I play, it's all about the gameplay, and this still has some quality gameplay about it. So there we have it, nice little sort of starter pack, some of your first games to get if you're getting a Sega Saturn. Highly recommend them games. They are pretty cheap, they are still worth it. Now, looking back, yeah, did the Sega Saturn do well? Not, like I say, over here, not in the UK, but I think it was a very underrated console. Definitely underrated. It does do a hell of a lot. When it comes to 2D graphics, I think it takes the mickey out of the PlayStation. And there is a few games on there that I think that do 2D and 3D kind of based games as well, like was it Street Racer? Yeah, and I think personally that is way better on the Sega Saturn than it is on the PlayStation. I prefer that version. Anyway, guys, great console, very underrated. If you've not got one, highly recommend getting it in your collection if you're thinking about it, and if you have got one, if you've not got some of them games, definitely recommend it. The machine's still pretty cheap, touch wood, wow, you know, before the great explosion of all these games coming up, but definitely recommend it. So the Sega Saturn, it still holds up today in my opinion as a retro console. Absolutely the dogs, or the mutts nuts should we say. So guys, I will say thank you for watching. Let me know what your first experience was like in the comments below with playing Sega Saturn, and what your first few games are, what you would choose for your first few games. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.